So in a previous lecture, we spoke about Kepler's laws of planetary motion. And we said that these laws are used to describe the way our planets move about the sun. In fact, Kepler himself used his first law of planetary motion to state the following. Every single planet moving about the sun follows a perfectly elliptical pathway. Now, actual experimental measurements show that the planets actually deviate, if only slightly, from these perfectly elliptical pathways. In fact, Newton himself used this fact, known as perturbation, to prove, to show and formulate the law of universal gravitation. So these deviations from these perfectly elliptical pathways that planets take are known as perturbations, and they're a direct result of the law of universal gravitation, as we'll see in just a moment. So once again, Newton used the perturbations of planets, specifically of Saturn, to formulate the causal laws, and this became known as Newton's synthesis. So he used it to formulate the law of universal gravitation, and along came the first, second, and third law of motion. So the law of universal gravitation basically states that every single particle or object with a mass will exert a force on one another, an attractive force that is directly proportional to the masses of the objects and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the center of masses. So this explains why perturbations take place. So when two objects, planet A and planet B, are moving in the following elliptical pathway, and when they get close to one another, what happens is these planets exert an attractive force on one another. They pull on one another, and they bring each other closer to one another. And this deviates from the elliptical motion, and this is known as perturbation. So once again, perturbations are a direct result of the law of universal gravitation. And perturbations can also be used to discover other planets in and outside our galaxy. So for example, if a scientist is observing a planet that's orbiting another sun in some far off galaxy, and the pathway of that object, that planet, deviates from a perfectly elliptical pathway, that means there must be other objects, other planets present around that planet.